All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us at the August 2024 meeting of the Oldham County Planning and Zoning Commission. Before we get underway, if everybody would please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, and would everyone in the room also please join me in silencing those electronics for the duration of the hearing. Before we get underway, Mr. Fisher, sorry to interrupt, would you do us the favor of introducing us to your new addition to the staff?
So with us today, I know some of you all met her at SRC the other night, but Anna Barge is our new senior planner. She comes to us all the way from Georgia. So happy to be here. She's been here about a week and a half and enjoying it so far. She's been coming back, so that's always a good sign.
Many thanks, sir. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you. All right, first order of business will be approval of minutes. Can we go ahead and get a motion on the floor? Thank you, Mr. Hampton.
A second.
And a second, Mr. Marsh. Thank you. Edits, changes, updates. Ms. Jones? You're good. Terrific. All right. My kudos then to the preparer of minutes. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead with a voice vote on this. All in favor of the approval of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. And the minutes are approved. All right. First order of business. Mr. Baxter.
So, Mr. Chairman, my recollection is we were discussing a matter involving the cell tower, and when we left off, the matter was tabled. The matter will need to be put back, taken off the table, and so that we can have some additional information presented. I believe that the questions, and Mr. Fisher may correct me, but the questions involved some more justification regarding the lot size waiver, fencing, if I recall, and tree coverage. Is that correct, Mr. Fisher? Yeah, more so tree cover. Tree cover, okay. And there was, and we were going to have some additional information, and it would be limited to that discussion. I believe all the other information was presented as, so anything that gets presented is going to be presented concerning that, and any rebuttal or opposition would be concerning those issues only.
I'm going to ask for your assistance in managing scope.
Okay,
as
very
we
good.
move through this discussion. So first thing to do, folks, is to get a motion on the floor to remove this item from the table. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion that we...
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Do I have a second? Do I need a second?
You should get a second and a voice vote.
Second, all right. I will do voice vote on this. All in favor of removing the item from the table, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. And the item is removed from the table.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might suggest, just for the benefit of the members of the commission, that Mr. Fisher might just take a moment to summarize the application again, just so that we know where we are and get everybody back up to speed.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. Mr. Fisher, you are up.
We need to swear everybody in right now.
Let's go ahead and swear staff, sure.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to re-summarize to refresh our memory, and then I will show you a few of the additional documents that have been provided, and then allow the applicant to talk more about those in depth. So we're looking at the telecommunications tower that was asking for a landscape buffer as well as minimum lot area waivers on that property. As with all of our cases, we heard this in July, but we also sent out all of our information to adjoiners again for this August hearing. So just so you know there. Once again, to refresh your memory, looking at the corner of West Highway 524 and Vixen Lane. So this is looking at a lattice communications tower that's 195 feet tall with a 4-foot lightning arrestor, total height of 199 feet. And the applicant states that that's to provide improved coverage for that area. We've got our related ground equipment on that concrete pad, and the leased lot area of 10,000 square feet. That was from our original hearing. Once again, here's a picture of the proposed tower. And a few of these new documents, which you were provided in your staff packets, showing an additional layer of evergreen trees that are to be planted around this area. In addition, the other thing you're going to want to note is right here, there is a 1 acre tree preservation area. And this is just a zoomed in version showing those evergreen trees that will go around that proposed fence that they still had in their plans. And then the 12-foot wide gravel driveway with that 30-foot access easement is still going to provide that access to West Highway 524, and you see that here. That was from our original case in July as well. The 6-foot tall wood perimeter fence with a 12-foot wide access gate is installed to screen that, and I know that was talked about a lot at our July meeting. Here's a picture of that. And then once again, these evergreen trees, and this was in your plan, and a schematic of what those, and the proposed to put in 28 of those evergreen trees, as well as that 1 acre of undisturbed area. So the applicant did yesterday provide me with a copy of their lease agreement, which I do have and can put up here on the overhead if you'd like, but it does state in there that an acre of that land around there will be undisturbed, is how it's worded. So I'll let the applicant talk more about that, but that is in the current lease agreement that was provided yesterday. And then just real quick to kind of summarize, with the cell phone towers, we've got that requirement that if it's not approved from the Planning Commission within those 60 days, but on July 23rd, I think I did include this in your staff packet as well, we did receive that email stating that they would agree to have this case tabled and bring before you today. So once again, we're really looking at that, the perimeter screening between the evergreen trees, and then also the acre minimum lot coverage are the two things on the table today. And those are the requested waivers. So, if we do choose to go forward with this, you'll have 3 different motions. You'll have 2 waivers, one for the landscape buffer, one for the minimum lot size. And then you'll also have the approval of the cell phone tower if you choose to if you choose to do so. And with that, I'll leave these up here because I know we'll probably come back to them. Do you all want to see a copy of the lease agreement that was provided, or do you want me to wait until their council talks?
Mr. Baxter, any reason for us to be reviewing the lease?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think we can let council discuss those terms if there are questions about it. And I would remind the commission that this is an area governed by federal law. So there are some conditions that you can place on cell towers, but generally speaking, cell towers are going to be allowable in most areas. And when we're discussing this, and Mr. Brown, I think, previously discussed why they picked this particular location, but we are fairly limited when we are discussing these things. I think Mr. Fisher would agree that while we can regulate to some extent, we certainly cannot prevent placement of cell towers if the criteria have been met for the placement. So I wanted you all to be aware of that as part of your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. And so, Mr. Fisher, just a question for you, and this is for edification of the commission in general. You mentioned the application date. And, Mr. Baxter, I think you'll confirm, if the commission fails to act, in other words, comes to no decision on this particular application, what happens?
Well, okay, so Mr. Brown graciously agreed on behalf of his client to extend the 60-day deadline so that the questions that were raised when we tabled the matter last month could be addressed. He is here to address that. If the commission takes no action today, this is the end of the time period, and by operation of law, the tower would be approved. So
Thank you,
this
Mr.
is
Baxter.
basically your opportunity to have some input into how this gets done.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. All right, Mr. Fisher, anything additional?
Sir?
Okay, Mr. Brown, if we could get you to restate name and address for the update of the commission, just
Do you need me to be sworn in? as
jog our
well?
memories. Are you counsel?
I'm counsel.
We do not need to swear you
Perfect.
in.
I appreciate that. For the record, Russell Brown, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis, here on behalf of the co-applicants here who are Horvath Towers and Verizon Wireless. So staff did a good job of showing you the documents we've worked over the last month to try to address some of the concerns of the commission expressed last month. So I'll say our goal in the 1 acre preservation area was to comply with the spirit of your minimum lot size. We're not expanding the lease area, so Horvath is not leasing additional area from the landowner, but there are restrictions as noted by the staff. Specifically, the restriction included in the memorandum or the lease amendment is that there will not be any they will not cut, remove, or impede the protection and preservation of trees within that area, and that they will agree to preserve and protect trees except for those that are dead or dying. So it did try to be pretty exhaustive in what I interpreted as some of the concerns from the commission last month. So while we do not have a 1 acre size, we'll still need the waiver from my perspective. We tried to meet the intent of some of the concerns that I heard last month, being that we didn't want this to be placed in an area of trees and then suddenly they're all cut down because we don't have any protections for that area. And as it relates to the landscape buffer, my belief is we would still need the waiver as well because your ordinance requires double staggered row of trees on all sides. What I suggested to the client and the client has provided to you is additional buffering from areas where it would be visible by someone other than the landlord. So that's areas immediately adjacent to the right-of-way and to any area that is not owned by the current landlord. So we have included evergreen trees. They are all within the existing lease area. So they're all within the existing 100 by 100 space. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned last month, is it eliminates the need to disturb existing trees to install more trees. The goal here was to try to minimize any impact outside of that lease area. There will be some impact because you have to have equipment to, bring trees in, to plant trees, to conduct that construction. But beyond construction, there will be no impact to those existing trees. So that was the intent of our 2 modifications, and we would agree to be bound by that updated site plan showing that landscape buffer, as well as obviously we have a lease amendment which is of record now because we have submitted it to the file, and so that would be binding as it relates to that 1 acre tree preservation. So our goal was to try to address those concerns raised. I hope that we have done that. Worked hard with the landowner and the size or the shape of the 1 acre was done very deliberately. It does not impact any existing improvements on the property. There are some existing improvements on the property. There's a fenced area that's utilized for the homeowner, and we tried to make sure that we didn't impact their ability to continue to utilize their existing property, but also meet what I heard as concerns of the commission at last month's meeting. So happy to answer questions, but our goal in this last month was to meet and overcome the objections that I heard last month. So happy to answer questions, but appreciate your attention and would appreciate your favorable vote on the waivers as well as the uniform application.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, council agreed it's an opportunity for anyone opposed to this application to provide response to what was just presented.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So they had an opportunity last month to present their opposition to the application as a general rule. The commission requested some additional information. We are limited in scope to what has been presented today by staff and what Mr. Brown stated as a part of his presentation.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone opposed to this application? Wish to have a response? Anyone who does, I tell you what, everybody who wishes to speak, I'm going to need to get you to go ahead and get sworn in. Please stand and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. As you approach the podium, please, I need to collect your name and address for the record.
My name is Benny Hamlet. I got 2 pieces of property directly across from where this tire's going to go. I want to apologize for not being at the meeting last time. I had other things I had to take care of. I live at 4003, which is kind of catty-cornered from it. I'm straight across from Bixson. I own the property at 4005, which is directly across from where the tire's intended to be put.
Is that Highway 524, sir?
Yes, sir. I purchased the property at 4005, cleaned it up and everything, and I've lived there since 97 at 4003. My mother-in-law's 90 years old on a walker. She lives at 4001. I take care of that property. I take care of the property at 4003, and I take care of the property at 4005. I keep everything looking the best I can do with it. We're real proud of the area we live in there. We have something special there. It's a scenic byway. I don't know, I just think there's better places this thing could be put. There is a tire that's probably 6 miles from it by road, probably.
Sir, so we have a very limited scope of discussion for today, all right? And it's limited to the discussion on the waivers, the landscape waiver, the minimum lot size waiver, for what it's worth. And the tower itself is not something that this commission gets to approve or not. That's a federal piece of consideration, okay? So if you have anything that you can tell the commissioners about approvals of waivers, landscape waivers, minimum lot size waivers, we'd love to hear from you.
I received a letter where they raised my property value on 4005, $45,000. Then a few weeks later, I get a letter where they're going to build a tire across from me. Me and the wife sat out in the yard, and we really don't want to look at that thing. I just think there's better places, I guess that's about all I got.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Good morning. My name is Arthur Blake, and I live on Hidden Valley Road, 8321. And the waivers they're looking at are going to put the...
Come closer to the mic so we can pick you up on the record,
The
okay?
waivers you're talking about are going to put the fencing and bushes and everything right next to 524. 524 is a scenic byway. A scenic byway, a state scenic byway. There's only 37 in the whole state of Kentucky. Somebody went to a lot of trouble to put this on that list. There's 120 counties, 37 of them scenic byways. There's absolutely nothing. No 2-story, 3-story buildings, nothing that are next to the road that would break up the view and the beautiful area that makes up this scenic byway. This is going to be here for decades, if not forever. This is going to be, every time you go by this beautiful scenic byway and people take their bicycles or their motorcycles, or they walk through there with their dogs, people out there on the road, every time, every single time, they're going to see this thing next to the road. It's no matter what your fence is going to be or how many little trees you plant. This is like, and literally, there's a scenic byway through the Red River Gorge. This is literally like putting this thing on chimney top rock. And you're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. Every time you go by there, they're going to look at that thing and go, this is such a beautiful area in Oldham County. There's nothing like it. And they're going to go, but why in the world would they put that right on the road? Now, I don't want to get rid of the tower. I want the tower to be far enough away from the road to where you preserve the state scenic byway of 524. And there are, the highway department has special programs. We have not heard from them. The federal government, he said, in certain aspects, on occasion, there are certain regulations. I'm sure they would pay attention to something that is almost like a national park or something like that. I'm just telling you the beauty of this area, looking out over the Ohio River and the calmness and the wildlife, and you're going to set it right on the road. And I would like you to think about this. And basically, I know in that area you're not only allowed to build so high, and on certain properties you got it zoned and everything else. This does not fit in the zoning. Yes, you can't do anything about whether or not the tower's there federally, but as far as county zoning, I wouldn't approve of this. And I'd appreciate it if y'all give it a little more time, a little more thought, and talk to some of these agencies, or let me bring them, because they are willing to listen and put their input in. And they, it wouldn't take a lot of time to check with a couple of agencies, state resource, highway department, special programs that this would fall under. This is literally a designated scenic byway, and that's not to be taken lightly. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next?
Yes, my name is Stephen James. I live on just off of 524 on Hidden Valley Road. Have 136 acres. I've been out here for 43 years and been a third of my property. I have my next door neighbors. We're wanting to do it like conservation, but it's pointless that I might as well just sell it all off as pieces. So since you're doing this, and you did do any type of archaeological study, I have the map of Westport, so you can take a look, and I have the scenic byways. I'd like to give this to Greg and Mr. Baxter.
Thank you.
So if you look at this,
Please, let's get you back on the record, okay?
I drew a couple of circles around. The site of this tower is where the old schoolhouse was, and it was there forever. It was a schoolhouse, but before then it was literally a blockhouse, for Indian attacks.
Mr. James?
Yes.
So can you give us something to work with respect to the waivers?
Well, there's no setback. If the tower falls, why doesn't it? It just falls straight down? No, it's gonna go 200 feet. And I don't know, maybe it'd be in the road. So you're not thinking about that? You're not thinking about historically? You're not thinking about the scenic byway. This has just been run through. I have called the number that was left, never got a call back. My wife has, everybody. What's the point of giving a number to get more information if nobody ever gives you any information? And I didn't get the pamphlet of what you were doing because I'm not next door neighbor. I'll just see it forever. I see one tower over in Indiana, and I see the other one in the Wave Tower. And I have seen this happen. It's just, but I guess you're gonna buffalo this through like Bruce Hamilton did with the tower. And he was a county attorney. And he took care of the Wave Tower for the Wave Tower, and he left. So this is just another way to just take over. So this is the beginning of Westport, is this, and Oldham County. Oldham's Landing is about a mile away from me. I'm on a landing road, Hidden Valley Road, so historically you don't care. You don't care about the scenic byway, and you're gonna do it, what you wanna do, no setback. If 200 feet, falls right in. Why don't you just make it a fort? Could we make it into the fencing and just call it Fort Verizon for Indian attacks or something? Never know. So thank you for putting a lot of effort. And if you're gonna put a sign, please pick up a number and talk to somebody. It's pointless to have a number that just leave a message, never get a call back. So thank you for your support, Oldham County. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to go next?
My name's Mark Waterbury, 8401 Hidden Valley in Westport. I thought today was going to be a question about the tower itself, not just the trees and landscaping. The trees and landscaping, the trees that you're talking about planting, I doubt they're going to be 200 foot tall. They won't really hide or obstruct what you're talking about putting up. The tower itself, my thought on it, in getting to what's been discussed, the other tower that we have, the Wave 3 tower, it was obsolete shortly after it was put up. And I think it's being used somewhat now, but I don't think it's being used to the potential of its height, of what's there. I think what you're putting up, if this becomes obsolete in the next few years, is Verizon going to come remove it? Or are they going to leave it for the property owner's problem? Something that'll just be an eyesore for as long as it stands. We know how technology changes. And the only thing else I can add is I'm a small property owner on Hidden Valley. I'm fortunate to have large property owners all around me. And I think that's what's special about the area in general. There's still a lot of really large farms that have been hesitant to break up and to make into smaller units. If we allow this to be done on 1 acre, then what's to stop more of these on 524? Any place they can find somebody with one lot to put something like this up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. Mr. Hampton, please. Yeah, I think it's time for the commission to ask questions. All right. Sorry.
You have another gentleman that came up.
Oh, sorry. Please.
Dave Burnett, 3715 West Highway 524. This is the second time I was here. Like I said, don't normally get up in bunch of front of a group like this, but I think it's very important. Everyone that showed up here today that came, or all the neighbors out there, most everyone that moved out here, it's agricultural out there. It's not commercial. We're on the, I gave you this up there, you've got it there. But a scenic byway, and it's right here on the brochure. It's our 524. It's like I said before, when they take a 12-mile loop out there, it's beautiful farmland. This guy right back here has got one of the most beautiful places out there. When you take that and top that hill, you don't find that everywhere else. I went to Bardstown this last week, and I was looking around the different places, and we're very fortunate to have what we have out there. And it's coming few and far between when tires like this go up. It just there's no way that when you clean the trees out or make that pathway, I don't know how you're going to make that drive. Is the driveway going to be in that curve? Because there's people out there that had to move driveways and everything out because they said it was too dangerous. It's not a long curve, but it's a blind curve around there. You're going to have trucks. I don't know if there can't be that many trucks coming in and out. But you just can't go through there. I know there's big trees now, but what they're all going to plant, they're not 200-foot trees. When you're backing off and coming around his farmland and up the hill, you're going to see that tower. It's going to take away the whole, you're going to be looking at that and, coming around this curve. And the other boy was drinking out. There's motorcycles, car clubs that come out there. You're taking a scenic byway, and sometimes there'll be 100 motorcycles come through there, maybe 100 cars. And that, I know we're not talking about the highway, but that 524 needs to be fixed and repaved. Like I talked with school buses are starting out. I see somebody did come along the road out there. But that hill isn't pretty, not the one coming down into Westport, but the one coming out and making that loop, making a 12-mile loop. It's need to be paved for a long time, plus the shoulders and stuff. You get a school bus coming down that road and get off of there, it's going over that guardrail and it's going down into that gorge. It just, and it's, we've had some bad weather out here, some bad winters. I think it's something that needs to be looked at. I'm not trying to, it's just when you're talking about fixing the shoulder or fixing the sides, it just makes a difference. There's a lot of people that travel that road, probably from this brochure. There's only 37 of them here in Kentucky, and they're probably going to be slowly dwindling away if you don't watch what we're doing. I just appreciate your time. Like I said, when y'all get done, make that trip down into Westport. Go down by the river, look at that park. Make that 12-mile loop out there and see what we're talking about. You'll drive right by where this is going to be. You'll see the different, and you'll see but all the people who are here really have moved out here for a reason. And it's you just don't find neighbors like that anymore. I appreciate y'all's time, but I wish you would really give it a lot of thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had 6 sworn on the way in, or excuse me,
I have
5 sworn, not 6.
It's okay. Mr. King, I had a question, and right before it got tabled.
Okay.
So I'm not really going to say anymore. You know how I feel
Go ahead and
about
get
it.
you sworn in, okay?
I wanted to ask the question.
1 second. Let's get you sworn in, okay?
I'm Maureen James, 8300 Hidden Valley Road. I swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I operate
Do
a
you
business.
solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do solemnly swear.
Thank
to
you.
tell
Thank
the
you.
truth.
Please
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
I've operated a media company with limited bandwidth the whole time. Honest to God, don't know how we've done it, but we have. We publish electronically. I have paid out the nose for Verizon. I have a Verizon cell phone. My question was, with high fiber optics recently, within the past year, being installed there, and you all can Google it, is a cell tower necessary, or are they about a year late for a competitive? Give you an example. I'm paying $240 for cell phone coverage. Just got on fiber optics, 1,000 up, 1,000 down, $60 a month.
I understand. We
For a
are
business.
exceeding the scope of what we can discuss in today's hearing.
But
Okay,
it's
we're
a
getting past that.
question.
We're talking about the
Is-
waivers.
Has this ever
We're
been
talking
studied?
about the waivers. So if you're finished, we can go ahead and move along with the hearing.
Okay. Has it ever been discussed whether the need, you said it's federally,
We're going
has
to
to
get
be
the applicant to
approved.
respond to this for you, okay?
That'd be, it was, thank you.
Right? All right, Mr. Baxter.
Chairman.
All right, so we are at a point where I know the commissioners have questions, and I think we are relying on applicant to provide some response to what we've heard, so, which should come first.
Well, the normal order would be questioning of the applicant and those in opposition, and that's our procedure.
Okay?
So maybe we go to that, and maybe some of the rebuttal that Mr. Brown may have may be addressed in the answers to the questions that are posed to him. So
right.
let's see where we end up.
Mr. Brown. All you.
Am I taking questions?
I think he probably is. Mr. Hampton, I know, had a question, and I don't know who he had a question for, but
I do have not a question, but I got a little statement, but it's not for the applicant.
Please, this is your moment.
I don't think we're normally accepting personal attacks during testimony. And I find the comments made about Bruce Hamilton were out of line. I think they're inappropriate. And I want to have it on the record that besmirching somebody who served this county and state for 40 years, and just by bringing something up out of the blue with no foundation is inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Who else? Questions? Mr. Douglas.
For the applicant. Mr. Brown? And I could ask our staff, but I'm sure it's in the lease. We have a section in our policy about section 340-050, and it was talk about the removal of cell towers that are abandoned. And I believe our staff has probably gone over this with you, that there's a guarantee of removal in case of abandonment of those cell towers, correct?
Yeah, the lease that we provide, the copy of the lease that we provided, the original lease has the removal language in it. That's a requirement. I believe it's usually 90 days after the end of, no later than 90 days after the end of a term. And those are 5-year rolling terms. So that is included in the lease, in the redacted version of the lease that was provided to staff.
And do you have any information or intelligence that in Oldham County we've ever had any cell tower abandonments, or have we had any cell tower abandonments?
I would not be in a position to
Okay.
answer that question.
Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Mr. Marsh?
Mr. Brown, sir. When you talked about the tree preservation area around the leased area, who was going to be responsible for that?
There's actually a prohibition on removal, and that's the way that it's drafted, is that no one can, neither the landlord nor the tenant, have any authority to remove any trees outside of, in that 1 acre area, except for dead or dying trees. So it's a prohibition about removal.
Okay.
And that was
So
the-
clarification, you are not leasing that property.
Correct.
It is just an agreement between you and the property owner buffering your leased space.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Marsh? Ms. Krause?
I don't know how important or non-important this is, but it was just more of a curiosity for me. I noticed in last month's application, it talked about a monopole telecommunications tower. This time, it talks about a lattice. I didn't know if that was done to be more visually appealing or what that meant.
I'll answer that because that was my first cell tower I'd ever done, and I was actually using someone else's presentation, and he corrected me in the testimony previously last month that it was actually a lattice tower and not a monopole. So this month I changed it so that he didn't have to call me out again. So that was.
Anything else, Ms. Krause? Okay. Other questions? Mr. Falvey?
Just as a reminder, it might be for Ryan, or unless you know, Mr. Brown, what is, I was having a hard time reading this again, the distance between 524 and your tower?
It's about 90 feet to the base of the tower.
To the base from
the right-of-way line, so that's not the edge of pavement.
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Brown said something, and I just want to make sure everybody is clear, and if I say something wrong, Mr. Brown, you please correct me. But as I understand it, the lease area is obviously smaller than an acre, but the commitment and, for example, a condition of approval will be that the trees located on the 1 acre footprint would be preserved, and except obviously within the leased area, because if there's trees within there, they've got to be removed. And so those trees during the term of the lease have to remain unless they are dead or dying. They are determined to be a problem. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so absolutely. So our intent would be your suggested conditions on the screen. In relationship to number 3, our suggestion would be that perimeter trees shall not be removed in accordance with the lease agreement that was provided to staff.
And that would include not only the perimeter trees, but trees located
Correct.
within that 1 acre.
So a better condition might be that the tree preservation area, as provided in the lease, shall be maintained in accordance with that, with the terms there, because that goes beyond perimeter trees, and it more, in my opinion, more closely ties to the lease agreement and gives perhaps the county an enforcement opportunity of that same lease obligation. That would be I'm not your counsel, but that would be my suggestion.
And my other thing that maybe I would ask you to comment on is the relationship between our ordinance, which I believe is how our ordinance was written, is dictated by KRS 100. I think it's 985 and some subsequent sections. I mean, we had to write it in accordance with the state statute, and the inner working of that with federal law as it relates to cell towers and those types of things, just to educate us maybe a little bit about how those two things work together.
Yeah, so obviously I'm licensed in Indiana and Kentucky. In Kentucky law, your contents of your applications are dictated by state law. What you can consider and can't consider are dictated by state law. And much of that is also coexists very well with federal law. There's a concept called effective prohibition under federal law that effectively says that a jurisdiction cannot regulate cell towers in a way that effectively prohibits the provision of coverage. Kentucky law has a similar kind of statement that essentially says that the applicant has to take into consideration a handful of things, but has made this as a determination to provide effective coverage in this area. And so, when we talk about siting, we talk about needs. Co-location requirements exist. Your ordinance provides for it. Kentucky law provides for it. Federal law provides for it. We have to pursue co-location first. But if co-location isn't available, then we can come to new raw land sites. And so we generally, the The uniform application provides a mechanism to say there are no co-location opportunities, and that's why we're pursuing here. And then as long as we can comply with building standards, regulatory standards, then we have a right to pursue a new location, which is what we're doing here. Did that answer your question?
It did, and am I correct in saying that our ordinance was somewhat written by the legislature in that they dictated what we had to put in our ordinance as it relates to this particular area?
Yes, they dictate what you can and cannot. Effectively, yes, they tell you what you have to provide or what you may only provide.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
All right. Further questions? Ms. Jones?
Okay, I have two questions. And one is for the applicant. Do you have any responsibility to maintain that evergreen screen? And the reason I ask is because I regularly pass one in a different area where every one of the evergreen screen is brown and dead, and they add to the eyesore instead of, concealing it. And
Yeah, I believe your ordinance provides a maintenance obligation to that. So to the extent though you're passing another site, and hopefully it's not one I've participated in.
No, and it's electric. It's not a tower.
But yeah, it is a county enforcement opportunity to say that those are not in compliance and they would need to be replaced. And yeah, so yes, there is a maintenance obligation. I'll stop my answer there.
Okay. And then my other question is, a lot of the people opposed to this, they're asking us, the commission, to deny it because it's on a scenic bypass. But to clarify, we don't have the right to do that because they have done their due diligence and they have picked this site, and we can't tell them where to have it, or we can't say that's not appropriate because it's on a scenic bypass, or?
That would not be a basis to deny it, no.
Okay. I wanted to clarify that for the people in opposition, that we don't have that right.
I also wanted to say as well, just as a point of clarification, that our regulations talk about scenic corridors in section 250-200, and West 524 is not a scenic corridor defined by Oldham County regulations. So I just wanted to make that note as well. So there are prohibited uses in regards to that section, but nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Further questions? Mr. Douglas, please.
When it comes to construction on the landscaping area, I just want to reiterate again that anything that's disturbed during that process of construction is generally worked out between the leasing and the lessor to put back what was needed to be put back, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to, that's usually the standard, so.
Yes, that is the standard in the lease.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Mr.
Appreciate
Brown,
it.
before you leave, and I do want to comment, there was discussion last month about the footprint and the ability to construct the tower within the leased area footprint, that it would not be necessary to exceed the scope of that footprint for construction purposes, is what I thought you said.
So yeah, I clarified with the client on that, and the extent you go outside the bounds would be things like if you're planting trees after a fence has been installed, you're going to have to do some work outside of the lease area to access that. But it's limited generally to trimming. So they would obviously you can't have trees that are outside the lease area that have, branches that are coming into the lease area, or only for construction purposes. And then there is a restoration obligation there. By building out the entire footprint, which we're doing now, because you have a 75 by 75 compound and then two landscape areas, you will have access beyond the lease area that are construction activities, but it is limited to trimming, the need to access it. It should not require any removal of any violation of the lease, of the prohibition on removal of trees, because they have the ability to maneuver around it. But yes, there will not be a hard and fast line that outside of that 10,000 foot. There's no construction activity because you will have to access those outside of that.
All right. Any additional questions? Ms. Davis, please.
Did I not, I was wondering if I understood correctly, that we don't really have the right to turn this down, that the federal government says that we can't not approve it. Is that correct? Is that what I heard you say?
That's not entirely accurate. So if, for example, there was a refusal by the applicant to attempt to co-locate on other towers that would provide service to the area, and Mr. Brown's testimony and his information provided to staff was that there was not the ability to do that, that would be a grounds to turn it down. So in other words, if there's a tower 100 feet up the road and they just say, well, we want to build one here, and we didn't even try to put an antenna on that tower, that would be a basis to turn it down. But I think the other thing that is important for you all to know is there is information that gets filed with this application of a technical nature that I believe Mr. Fisher probably has access to, a lot of which is confidential information in support of the application. And you could ask Mr. Fisher if the information filed with him complied with the requirements of the ordinance, which is contained in section 340-020. There's certain documentation that had to be provided, and I would suggest, and Mr. Fisher can confirm, that that documentation was provided or we wouldn't be here today.
That is correct.
All right, Ms. Davis, further questions? Anyone else? Anyone else? All right, where are we, Mr. Baxter?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I believe you're at the point that if Mr. Brown had rebuttal evidence that he wanted to present or questions that he wanted to ask of those who presented opposition testimony, he would have a right to do that. If he does not, then we would step to the opportunity for those speaking in opposition to present their rebuttal evidence, and then final statements.
All right.
I'll be incredibly brief. Our goal in the revised documents that are before you, the revised plan before you, was to comply with the spirit of your ordinance on the two waivers. I don't strictly comply with those, and I'm not representing that I do, but our goal was to comply with the spirit of that ordinance. Ground equipment shielding is not intended to shield the tower. Shielding the tower doesn't do any, putting obstructions in front of a tower doesn't do any good for the construction of a tower. You need to have the ability to emit radio frequency emissions. So I understand the remonstrator's points about no tree is going to shield the entire view of the tower, and that's not the intent of the shielding. The intent is related to ground equipment and those things that are seen more frequently by passersby. So I think that our goal, and I appreciate staff giving us pretty significant feedback and taking time to try to help us present something that more closely complies with the spirit of your ordinance. But that's the extent of my rebuttal testimony, but I would appreciate your approval of the uniform application and the two waivers.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any of those who've provided opposition testimony, do any of you wish to provide any rebuttal statements at this time? Yes, sir, I need you at the podium so we can get your comments on the record.
Arthur Blake is my name. I was curious the difference between a scenic byway and a scenic corridor. They seem almost, if not similar, they're from the same family. And I just didn't want to shield the tower. It just seems to me like it should be moved back away from the road. And I don't see, I think that is more with the spirit of the ordinance to try to negligate the effect of that, that view of the road. If this thing was an acre back or 2 acres back, what is this thing, 4 acres? Put it back toward the property, then the bushes and trees wouldn't be much of an issue. It'd be way back there, it'd be out of sight. You'd see the tower over there, but it wouldn't be right here on the road. And that's what I was trying to get at. And anybody help me differentiate the differences would be good. I mean, search your soul over this thing. It's when you look in the mirror, you're taking a scenic corridor and you're putting this big tower on the road when it could have easily been moved back 1,000 feet or however long it can be moved out of everybody's enjoyment. And Oldham County is very enjoyment. It's got very beautiful areas, and this thing is a real jewel, and we're about to throw it away forever. So you think about it.
Thanks, sir. Okay, on to final comments at this moment.
Correct. Opposition, sir?
Anybody from those who have provided opposition testimony? Sir?
I did not speak, but I have a rebuttal question that came up.
This is rebuttal testimony, not questions. I'm sorry, but
It was a question based on what they said.
I tell you what, we're going to go with a little bit of latitude here. So let's do this. I need your name and address for the record and need to get you sworn in, okay?
Sure.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Grace. I live at 4420 West Highway 524, Westport. We're on a generational farm over there. We're about a half a mile from where the tower is. And the rebuttal question I had was, Mr. Baxter, you mentioned that the applicant would have to show that they'd done their due diligence, that they needed this tower in this location, so it would not be repetitious with other towers in the area. And I don't know, and I apologize, I was in Honduras on a mission trip last month, so I wasn't here. And I don't know if that question's been asked and answered, if they have done their due diligence that this tower has to be here, or they could not use the Wave 3 tower or something in that manner.
So within their application packet, which is about yay thick, you all get a good percentage of that given to you all. They do have to present a statement where they have attempted to co-locate on any area based off the area that they're trying to provide coverage for. And so they were unable, that was in the application packet.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher, hang on one second. Mr. Baxter, this is for both of you. This is ground, this subject matter that was covered in the prior hearing or the prior portion of this hearing. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Grace, that settle it for you?
That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Opposition, anyone else wishing to provide a final statement with respect to this application? All right. Mr. Brown, do you have anything?
I have nothing further.
Very well. And we will close.
I don't think we answered the question about the corridor versus is that something we need to address?
I took the question as rhetorical, term of art, not science, but Mr. Baxter, can you add to that?
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, just for the commission's sake, Mr. Fisher did make a statement about that, and he could probably, he had previously indicated that this is not part of what Oldham County has defined as a scenic corridor. Is that correct?
So that's correct. So scenic byways, I looked on the KYTC website. So that's defined as it's considered to have roadsides or view sheds with scenic, natural, cultural, historical, archaeological, and/or recreational value worthy of preservation, restoration, protection, and enhancement. And then it goes on to a much longer definition. I did look, they've got a chart of all the scenic byways within Kentucky. I did look, the 524 loop is on there. But as far as our regulations go, we define scenic corridors as primary arterial regions identified in our major thoroughfare plan. And so those have certain prohibited uses. And even in that, cell phone towers is not in that list. So I'll just throw that in.
And would it be fair to say, Mr. Fisher, if it is listed by the state, they would have jurisdiction over whether or not this is an issue, not the Planning Commission?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. All right. So we will close this portion of the hearing at this moment. Mr. Douglas, please.
I believe Mr. Brown gave his rebuttal. Was that his final statement also? I mean,
He indicated he didn't have anything else to add.
okay.
All right. So at this time, we will move into decisions. And at this moment, I might remind everyone that you have an opportunity to ask for a break here, and if you choose to discuss with council how decisioning may go out, you have that opportunity. All right, do we wish to take that opportunity?
And before we get to that, Mr. Chairman, I feel compelled to stress that the procedure that this particular application takes is different from the usual and customary way that you all do things. And that procedure, and Mr. Fisher can outline it better if you need him to, but that procedure about how this goes is defined in section 340-040 of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, which I would dare say is lifted probably from the applicable KRS statutes. And indicates what needs to happen in order for you all to make a decision about this. There has been the basis for denial. It says the commission may deny a uniform application to construct a telecommunication antenna tower based upon an applicant's unwillingness to attempt to co-locate additional transmitting or related equipment on any new or existing towers or other structures. And it says that upon approval, talks about what the applicant's obligation is to notify the Public Service Commission. But I would point out that there is information in here that if, for example, you denied the application, you have to do that in writing, and part of the denial, you have to state the reasons for disapproval in the written decision and make suggestions which, in the opinion of the commission, would better accomplish the objectives of the comprehensive plan. And you would probably need to make some suggestions about how the application could be improved in compliance with the ordinance and with the applicable statutes. So this is just a different animal than what we normally consider because of the federal statutes that that deal with this type of thing and the state statutes that dictate how this process goes. So it is not the latitude that you have a lot of times in making these decisions is pretty limited. And so you're going to be considering things, and I think Mr. Fisher will outline for you what you're going to consider, but they're going to be done in a particular order that are laid out in your packet. I think the suggested order would be to make motions and findings regarding the the landscape buffer and minimum lot size waiver regarding the tower. And then we would move on to a motion to approve the tower itself.
Mr. Fisher?
Yeah, so those are located on page 5 of your staff packet, along with suggested conditions of approval. The one I did want to make note of was for the first one on the landscape buffer area. I don't remember exactly how he worded it. I think he had perimeter trees shall not be removed in accordance with terms of the lease agreement. I had written up previously to that, as I'm practicing this motion writing skill that I need to learn when I get to sit up there starting next month. But a minimum of 1 acre radius of the leased premises will remain undisturbed and preserved except for the removal of any dead or dying trees, and no action shall be taken to harm the trees located within this area.
Mr. Brown, let the record show you're nodding your head, okay?
Yes,
Thank you.
that mirrors our lease language, so.
Very well, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, I think the rest of them are on there. Like I said, you've heard evidence and testimony. You've got 3 different decisions to make with conditions of approval for each.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. All right, commissioners, it is now in your hands.
Mr. King?
Yes, sir.
I move that we take a 10-minute recess.
Thank you, sir. We will take 10. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll return to order now. All right, Commission, we are moving into decision-making time now. Commission, are we ready? All right, we're moving into decision-making time now. Mr. Fisher, can you go ahead and set the context for us here, please?
So you'll have three motions before you. So the first one will be the landscape buffer waiver. With those conditions that the landscape buffer shall only apply to the application considered at the August 27th, 2024 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. Wood plank privacy fence and evergreen shrubs shall be incorporated into the perimeter fencing to screen the telecommunications facility at ground level. And then the last one is a minimum of 1 acre radius of the leased premises will remain undisturbed and preserved except for the removal of any dead or dying trees, and no action shall be taken to harm the trees located within this area. You want to go through all of them?
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
You want to go through all three motions right now?
No, let's take these one at a time.
Okay.
All right, I think that's enough to absorb for the moment. So we are on the landscape buffer minimum lot size waivers. We're looking at landscape buffer waiver at this moment, and the floor is open for a motion. Ms. Nasser.
Regarding the request for a landscape buffer waiver on docket PZ-23013, I make a motion to approve based on the testimony and evidence presented today and in the July 23rd hearing. This landscape buffer waiver, based on testimony and evidence, has also included the proposed landscaping within the 100 by 100 lease area, including fencing and additional evergreen screen, but has also included to add an acre of undisturbed trees in the surrounding area, as stated in the conditions of approval. These conditions of approval shall be included that were stated by Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Ms. Nasser. Mr. Baxter.
We have an adequate motion, Mr. Chairman.
I believe Ms. Nasser stated docket 2-3. It should be 24013.
24 is correct, 24-013. Ms. Nasser, would you accept that update to the language?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marsh. All right, we have a motion on the floor.
I'll make the second if
Second from
Ms.
Mr. Douglas.
Nasser will include that according to the conditions of approval or the motion to approve the minimum or the landscape buffer waiver, that we state that it involves section 9.1 waivers, the exceptional hardship facts on it would due to the topography or keeping the natural physical conditions encountered on the particular land, and that's why we're making the recommendation for the waiver.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Ms. Nasser,
Agreed.
can you incorporate that into your motion? It's the maker of the motion, and the second agrees as well. Mr. Douglas? Thank you. Mr. Baxter?
Very good, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Commission, discussion. Seeing none, we'll move into roll call vote. Ms. Edgar?
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Ms. Walzer?
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting in July.
Ms. Nasser?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Finney?
Yes.
Mr. Falvey?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. And the motion to approve the landscape buffer is passed on a motion of 11-0 with one abstaining. All right, Mr. Fisher, minimum lot size.
All right, next one up on page 5 of your staff packet, we have the minimum lot area waiver. You have suggested motions to either approve or deny, and the suggested condition of approval for this one is the minimum lot area waiver shall only apply to the application considered at the August 27th, 2024 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. All right, commissioners, any questions on this? Floor will be open for a motion with regard to the minimum lot size waiver.
Here we go.
Ms. Nasser, you're up.
All right, regarding the minimum lot size waiver, lot area waiver, docket PZ-24-013, make a motion to approve based on testimony and evidence presented today and on the July 23rd meeting. This minimum lot area in agreement with the statement made by Mr. Douglas referencing topography and the need to protect the area, the statement that the applicant is including 1 acre to be undisturbed of that area, even though they will not be leasing that piece of that 1 acre, but still not disturbing that piece of the land. I make a motion to approve. This shall also include the conditions of approval as stated by Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Ms. Nasser. Mr. Baxter?
You have an adequate motion, Mr. Chairman.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Mr. Hampton, thank you. All right, commissioners, discussion. Move into roll call vote.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Finney,
Yes.
Ms. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Davis, Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Marsh,
Yes.
Ms. Walzer,
Abstain.
Mr. Winters,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Nasser,
Yes.
Mr. Hampton.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. And the waiver of minimum lot size, motion for approval has been approved on a vote of 11-0 with one abstaining. All right, Mr. Fisher.
Okay, and the last one is the telecommunications tower. At the bottom of page 5 onto page 6, you have your suggested motions of approval or denial. And this will include the potential binding elements associated with this tower, which include there shall be no changes to the requested telecommunications plan and application as was presented at the August 27th, 2024 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing without review and approval of the commission, and that the telecommunications tower shall comply with applicable local, state, and federal regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Commissioners, questions, discussion? Okay, the floor is open for a motion on the plan. Ms. Davis?
I make a motion we approve for PZ-23-0113.
Can you get closer to that mic, please? I'm sorry.
I make a motion that we approve PZ-23-013. The telecommunication tower request complies with the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan. The telecommunication tower request complies with the requirements of the Oldham County Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, and that is docket number PZ-24-013, correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. All right, council.
That is an adequate motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we wish, are there conditions of approval on the tower application itself? Binding elements? All right, do we wish to incorporate those into your motion, Ms. Davis?
There should be no changes to the requested communication plan and application as presented at the August 27th, 2024 Oldham County Planning and Zoning Public Hearing without review and approval of the commission. The telecommunication tower should comply with the applicable local, state, and federal regulations.
Thank you, and that's part of your motion? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Baxter, we good?
Yes, sir.
All right, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Marsh, thank you. Discussion, commissioners? Seeing none, we'll move into roll call vote. Ms. Edgar?
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Mr. Falvey?
Yes.
Mr. Finney?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Ms. Nasser?
Yes.
Ms. Walzer?
Abstain?
Mr. Marsh?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. And the development plan for the tower has been approved on a vote of 11-0, one abstaining. All right, guys, need a quick break? Everybody good? I'm gonna keep rolling. Break or roll? Okay, we're moving forward.
Do we need to bring up this agenda change at all on the docket number?
All right, Ms. Edgar, you ready to read the next docket item?
Do we want to bring up the change in the docket number, just so everybody awares we're
Sure.
making an audible? So we'll be doing PZ 24015 next because of a schedule issue.
Docket PZ 24-015. Application has been filed by Westcott Construction LLC for a site plan review with waivers for a proposed strip mall consisting of a proposed coffee shop and retail located at Madison Park Place and Kimway Crossing Road, Crestwood. The waiver is requested for maximum impervious surface in Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, Section 170-020. The property is 0.823 acres in Zone C3 General Business District.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. Mr. Fisher, you have staff's presentation.
All right, yes, Ryan Fisher, Director, Oldham County Planning and Development. So as Ms. Edgar stated, this is for a site plan review with a waiver on a parcel at Madison Park Place and Kenwood Crossing Road, right next to the Crestwood Walmart. This is for a proposed strip mall, which will consist of a proposed coffee shop and retail, and the waiver being requested for maximum impervious surface. That property is zoned C3, General Business District, and the parcel is 0.823 acres in size. Other than the site history regarding the Walmart development, as far as this particular site, there is no previous site history. As far as our case history, we did meet on this at TRC back in July on the 17th. Those meeting minutes were included within your staff packet for your review. We posted this to our county website on the 31st of July, sent out adjoining property owner notices on August 12th, and the public notice appeared in the Oldham Era actually before that on the 8th of August. Here is the parcel. Once again, you're looking at the Walmart down here to your south, Taco Bell just to the north. And then I believe this is a Baptist medical facility over here to your left. Here is the zoning map showing it is located within C3. So the applicant's proposing a 150-foot by 50-foot, so a 7,500 square foot retail strip mall on that 0.823 acre strip of land that's adjacent to the Walmart, once again, zoned C3 General Business District. So that is a permitted use within the C3 Business District. The intent of that general business district, according to our regulations, is to provide for appropriate locations for a wide variety of businesses, commercial, mass merchant, and miscellaneous service activities, and does not include land uses characterized by any sort of extensive warehousing or frequent heavy trucking activity. Once again, the development is a 100 by 50 foot, so 5,000 square foot retail portion, and then a 50 by 50 foot, 2,500 square foot coffee shop with a drive-through. I believe you were included these plans with your packet as well, showing both of the locations. You've got the retail portion, and then the coffee shop with drive-through as well. And then lastly, the applicant is also requesting a waiver of that maximum impervious surface. So that's located in section 170-020. That's what falls within the C3 General Business District guidelines. And so that maximum impervious surface that is allowed is 65% of the lot area. They are requesting that impervious surface area be 82%. So they're asking for a waiver from that regulation. And just to note, before, there was ask about Taco Bell being next door. They also requested a very similar waiver for impervious surface that was granted by the Planning Commission. I think theirs was like 78% or something like that. So just so you know, the neighboring, when you look at the pictures of the Taco Bell, same type of impervious surface waiver was requested and granted there. So in summary, the applicant's requesting that site plan approval with a waiver for maximum impervious surface area for a proposed strip mall located there in the Walmart development at Madison Park Place and Kenwood Crossing. Our proposed binding elements, the approval applies only to the plan presented at the August 27th, 2024 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. Landscaping and lighting plan must be submitted for approval at the time of construction plan approval. There should be no changes to the plan without review by the Oldham County Planning Commission and Engineers Office, except for landscaping and lighting plans, which shall be reviewed by staff. And the plan must comply with all established federal, state, and county ordinances requirements and comply with all necessary easement restrictions. And then with the waiver, we'll just have the one potential condition of approval is that waiver shall only apply to the plan reviewed at today's August 27th, 2024 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. And with that, that concludes my portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Silliman, do you have something to add today? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good morning. Jim Silliman, Oldham County Engineer. Let's see.
Did we get you sworn earlier?
No, you didn't.
Well, let's do that.
Sure.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Sound a little redundant. I tell you all this every time, but as the county engineer and stormwater coordinator for the county, most of my review will focus on traffic and stormwater. I say that for the benefit of the listening public. So, okay. So I wanted to, I guess, draw a detail of two ordinances we have for stormwater so you understand, or everyone understands better or best. Our construction site runoff ordinance applies to sites that are greater than 1 acre. As you'll see, on the plans, and we verified this, that the site itself is 0.823 acres. So the applicant will not be required to get a stormwater quality management and erosion control permit from my office. Similarly, they would not be required to get a Division of Water KYR 10 permit. However, the difference is with our runoff, our stormwater, post-construction stormwater runoff ordinance, is that it applies to acres greater than an acre, land disturbance greater than an acre, or if it's part of a common development that's greater than an acre. So even though the site itself is less than an acre, it's part of a common development, the Walmart development that came through in 2013, 2014. So as such, our post-construction stormwater ordinance does apply. As such, the applicant's going to be required to make sure the downstream capacity of the stormwater system is sufficient to address this project. That would include factoring in the impervious area that they're asking for a waiver on. Additionally, the post-construction runoff ordinance includes water quality requirements, so they would be required to address those. And that can be done either through the existing detention basin or water quality features on site. They would typically also have to address stormwater retention or detention for increased runoff. However, the site as part of that Walmart development that was approved was already included in the existing basin, the large basin that you've probably seen in front of South Oldham school campus. So they won't be required to provide the detention or retention calculations. Moving on to traffic. So this is a portion of the minor subdivision plat, and that's a typo. This is actually from June 12th, 2014, not 2024. But the highlighted area is the proposed development site. Madison Park Place, you can see is, well, the text is kind of small, so I'll say, it's a dedicated right-of-way, all the way from 329B to this curve that lines up behind Walmart. Currently, the city of Crestwood maintains Madison Park Place to the intersection with Kenwood Crossing Drive and Landers Drive. However, they intend to also maintain the remainder of that portion. We're just working with them and KYTC to establish that officially within our records as far as what is shown as city maintained. But it is their intent to maintain this entire portion, and that is differentiated from Kenwood Crossing Drive, which is actually an internal road and private part of that Walmart development. As part of the 2014 hearing for the Walmart site, there was a traffic impact study completed dated November 2013. It included several recommendations, two of which being striping this intersection with Madison Park Place and Kenwood Crossing Drive to include these three separate lanes, a left, a right, and a through. It also included a recommendation for the traffic signal, which would be down here at 329B in Madison Park Place. Of course, both of those measures have been completed. We also know there's a traffic signal also at the Kenwood school entrance, which has a back entrance to Walmart. So both those potential entrances are signalized. The reason I mention that is because when we compare, this side has some tables that were in that 2013 traffic impact study. Our subdivision regulations state that if we're looking at a site that has greater than 100 peak hour trips and also has an entrance on a road with greater than 2,000 ADT, we would require a traffic impact study. When we compare the trip generation that was included in that Walmart study to the trip generation that we're looking at now with a coffee shop, the coffee shop's significantly greater than the bank and restaurant that were proposed. So we're looking at I'm calculating about a 234 peak hour trip increase from that study. And also based on counts that we got from KIPTA in July of this year, it shows that Kenwood Crossing Drive has 2,600 daily trips. So it meets this requirement now for the traffic impact study. Understanding one was already done, we're basically asking for an update to that traffic study to see what changes should be made. This is comparing those the traffic data that we did receive from KIPTA. Basically, in the black text is what was included in that 2013 study. The red text is what I received from KIPTA. This is all turning movements at the intersection. The reason I put it on there is it's somewhat unique of an intersection in that the highest movements are the right turn onto Madison Park Place and the left turn from, getting back to 329B. There's not a lot of through movements. So we've discussed this with the applicant's attorney, the applicant's engineer, the City of Crestwood engineer, and what we're looking for basically is this traffic impact study that would substantiate what improvements might be necessary at this intersection as it continues to receive more traffic, but also understanding that it's a bit atypical and that there's not a lot of these through movements. So with that said, we don't have the traffic impact study yet. General Note 4 on the plans indicates the future traffic impact study. And again, with discussion with the applicant and their engineer, they're going to provide a binding element that addresses this, so we would have a way to implement this before or during construction plan review. Okay. Thank you.
All right, anything else from staff? All right, commissioners, questions for staff. Mr. Douglas.
Mr. Fisher. You thought, I know you expected me to go to him first.
It's going to be Jim.
I know it's in the TRC committee meeting notes. Mr. Urban had asked, will there be a shared access easement for the entrance subject property to allow access to Taco Bell? Do you know if the applicant's going to provide one of those with Taco Bell?
I'll let the applicant answer that.
Okay, but they have not provided.
They have not, no.
Okay. Then my next question will be for Mr. Solomon when he finishes.
Mr. Sullivan. Yeah, there you go.
And maybe you were already discussing it with the
Yes.
attorney already regarding the traffic study, and I don't know if any other members here or commissioners will ask, but in that binding element, what are any improvements may be made? Will you extend beyond those improvements? Like if they say traffic light is good enough, the 2 stop signs are sufficient, are you going to ask for a stop sign on the road that's being maintained by the City of Crestwood?
Well, it really depends on what that traffic impact study recommends. I mean, with the existing signals at the 2 main entrances on 329B, there's not much more you can do with that, and the state can adjust the timing on those, except maybe if they were to recommend additional lanes. I don't see that happening, but it could be part of the study. Okay. Now, keep in mind also that Oldham County is working with KYTC and it's with funding that was secured through KIPTA to work on a corridor study of 329B, where we're looking at the entire corridor from I-71 to Kentucky Highway 22. So there's a lot going on in the area as we recognize other developments coming in. But again, the point of this is to determine whether does that need to be a 4-way stop, and that's one thing the city engineer asked about.
Okay.
Maybe. However, if the turning movements show that no, it doesn't, because you don't have enough through movements, maybe it doesn't become a 4-way stop until the outlot to the west or to the east is developed. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else, Mr. Douglas?
No.
All right, Ms. Kraus.
So I have a question related to the private entrance there. Is there any way that this drive-through might impact the traffic going in and out of Walmart?
Well, yes, because
words,
it's
that could get
because
really
the
backed
site enters onto Kenwood Crossing Drive, so everything enters and leaves at that spot.
Okay, so does that traffic study expand to that level, and do they have any jurisdiction to have the private roadway there?
Well, it should look at that spot, and I think for their own circulation, they're going to want to make sure that it operates effectively.
Okay.
Anything else, Ms. Kraus? No. All right, additional questions of staff? All right, seeing none. Mr. Ashburner, presentation from applicant.
Thank you, members of the commission. I'm Cliff Ashburner with Dinsmore and Shoal, 101 South Fifth Street, Louisville 40202. Here today on behalf of Westcott Construction. I also have with me Phil Gambrell with Prism Engineering. His firm is the firm that drew the plan we're going to show you today. I understand some of the questions have to deal with traffic. We'll get to a suggested binding element, and I can tell you that our traffic engineer has already reached out to Mr. Silliman in order to get a final scope on that traffic study. I don't know if they've had an opportunity to actually settle exactly what that scope is, but I think when you hear our discussion, you'll understand that there's a relatively limited window, a limited amount of additional development that can use this road, and there's a limited, therefore, spectrum of solutions for improving or maintaining traffic flow in the area. So let me first just kind of run through our presentation, and then I'll get to that binding element. So first, you all are certainly familiar with the site. I'll make a promise to you, I will not invoke federal law for the rest of my presentation. This is a Walmart site, and this is an outlot outside of a Walmart site. So this is a fairly straightforward development proposal, and it's actually nestled between the Walmart and the Taco Bell, as you all are aware of. This is the subject property as it sits today. It's over 90% impervious as it sits. Some of that is pavement, some of that is compacted gravel, but it is it looks really like the site had either been cleared and made ready for development or even potentially developed and cleared before. I don't think anything has ever been built there, but it does look like somebody got started. So the proposal, although we are seeking a waiver for the impervious surface relative to the regulation, it's actually going to result in a decrease in impervious surface over what's out there now. So there will be more green space and landscaping on the property when the development is concluded than there is today. And you can see the position of the site relative, obviously, to the Taco Bell that does have a drive-through, Kenwood Crossing Road, Madison Park Place, and then the Walmart itself. The unknown really is what happens on that lot to the east. As Mr. Silliman mentioned, right now, and I would anticipate this to be the case moving forward, most of the movements will just be additional trips that are making the same movements that are being made now. So it's mostly right turns in from Madison Park onto Kenwood and left turns out, people going back to 329. This is what the site looks like on the ground today. You can see, the edges of the property are kind of overgrown, and then you can see that impervious surface in the middle. You got Walmart, the Walmart parking area. I understand a partial justification for the most recently installed light on the south side down at 329 in front of the school was really to address cut-through traffic that was coming through the Walmart parking lot, even though the Walmart parking lot is designed in a pretty circuitous route. You really have to kind of work to cut through there. So this is, again, the subject property as it sits today. As I mentioned, there will be more green space when we're done than there is there now. And this is the proposed development plan. So all of those areas that you saw with planting, most of those will be getting thicker. Interior landscape areas will be added, as well as some landscaping around the building. The proposal, as I mentioned, is a fairly standard, if you will, design for an outlot use. So you have a coffee shop here. There'll be a small outdoor dining area or outdoor, area for people to have coffee when the weather is nice. Probably not today. And then we have the retail area. We do not have tenants for this portion of the site yet. Then you've got the dumpster over there, kind of at the very interior of the site. And this is the proposed building. So the building is a mixture of masonry, glass, signage, and then EIFS kind of a nicer accent material just above it. It's going to be a really nice, I think, nice looking building. It'll certainly sit in well with its surroundings. These are wall sconces for lighting on the back to provide a little bit more design, understanding that this is the rear of the building. This will be on the interior of the site between the site and the Taco Bell. And then this is the area that you would see from Kenwood. So it's mostly glass with that outdoor seating area and then the signage there for the coffee shop. So the issue of traffic and how to deal with that is certainly a concern for every development, especially every retail development, and I'm aware that it's a concern in this area. This is the intersection we're talking about. Mr. Silliman showed the stop sign there. There's a stop condition here, a stop condition coming out of the condos over here. This is looking back across the street from the front of the residential portion there. One thing to note, you can see there are no truck signs on this area, kind of directing the trucks that come to the Walmart not to come through this outlot area. It does get, as you get up closer to the Walmart parking lot, a little tight, and I'm not sure an 18-wheeler will be able to make those maneuvers. This is looking back toward 329. You can see the configuration of the intersection again. And the proposal that we would like to offer, and I did speak with Mr. Silliman about this yesterday in order to get the wording right and the timing right, is that the applicant will conduct a traffic impact study and file the same with Mr. Silliman, the Oldham County engineer, before construction plan submittal. So the next step, if you all approve this site plan, is for Phil's office to turn the site plan into a three-dimensional construction level plan. Understanding that we do not have the TIS available now, we would need to have that completed, submit that to Mr. Silliman before submitting the construction plans, and then incorporate, as you'll see here, that should the TIS recommend striping or signage improvements, the applicant shall include such improvements in its construction plan submittal for review by both Mr. Silliman and the City of Crestwood engineer. So we will conduct the study, we will submit it to Mr. Silliman, and then depending on what improvements may come out of that, we'll incorporate those in the construction plans. One thing to note about that, as with all public infrastructure improvements, those would become part of the bond as well at that point. So you would have security that if there are stop signs that need to be added, if there is striping that needs to be modified on Madison Park Place, that would be a bonded improvement as part of the development. Now, the reason we use the terms striping or signage improvements really comes back to the likelihood of certain things being necessary, understanding there's a portion of the roadway or this intersection that we're talking about that is public, which is Madison Park Place, and then Landers and Kenwood are both private. It is also the case that Landers kind of goes into this condominium development and stops. So there's not the traffic that's coming out of there is what's going to be coming out of there. It's also true that on Kenwood, it is really serving the Walmart and the outlots. The one unknown is this outlot here in the back. We don't know what use is going to go there. But when something develops there, I think that's the time that the condition of the intersection will change a little bit, and there will be more through movements. Given the limited nature of the traffic here, I think it is unlikely that improvements would go beyond signage or striping. I don't think that we would ever get to a point where a traffic signal was warranted at that intersection, just given the volume of trips that we're adding. But obviously the TIS will tell us what the final improvements need to be. And that's why we suggested in the binding element that we'll conduct that, submit it before construction plan approval, and then should it make specific recommendations, we'll include those in the construction plans, which Mr. Silliman will again review and which will be part of the bond. So in short, we're decreasing the amount of impervious surface over the existing condition. The use is a use that is typically found on an outlot adjacent to a Walmart or another large grocery anchored center. And we are committing to resolve traffic issues should any arise or should any be projected through the TIS. The last thing that I will mention is with regard to the stormwater and water quality. I think Phil mentioned, primed me on this. We would include a water quality unit. So that's a mechanical water quality unit that spins out some of the oils and dusts and things like that before the water leaves the site. That'll also be part of the construction plans. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Phil is happy to take any questions. I don't know if there's anybody else here to speak on this application.
Well, let's find out, okay?
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Ashburn.
Thank you.
Does anyone else here wish to speak in favor of this application? All right, seeing none, does anyone wish to speak in opposition or have questions of the applicant with respect to the applicant's testimony? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, we are into questions from the commission. Commissioners, who has questions? Mr. Falvey.
Yes.
Okay.
Does Westcott own that adjoining lot?
I don't believe, no. Westcott actually doesn't own this
Yeah.
lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But no, does not own the adjoining lot.
All right. Do we know who owns that lot?
So the one directly to the rear, according to the PVA, is still owned by Walmart.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just.
All right, anything else, Mr. Falvey? All right,
Mr. King?
questions, Mr. Douglas?
Going back to the question I asked staff, will you be getting a shared access easement for the entrance to the property to allow access to Taco Bell, since it seems like the entrance is right there anyway?
Well, actually, I've not reviewed that specific easement. There is, however, the entrance to the Taco Bell is on this property.
Yeah.
So the easement already exists. I don't believe we need an access through Taco Bell. I will certainly look at that prior to construction plan approval, but I think the access easement for both parcels already exists to share the entrance onto Kenwood.
And do you know, as far as the coffee shop, and I don't know what the retail, you say you don't have tenants, but as delivery trucks, because you show that nice, perfectly no trucks allowed sign coming up on King Crossing
Right.
Road, but
I
how
think,
would they access the property?
Sure. That is really aimed at tractor trailers. So deliveries for this would have to be accommodated on a box truck or something
Okay.
small like that.
That's what I thought.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And Phil ran the truck turns with the garbage truck to show that the site would work for a box truck size vehicle.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I do have one more question. Why was the choice of putting the trash dumpster on that side and not on the back side of the property on the other, sort of like where Taco Bell's is?
Right. Well, obviously, it's going to be in a shelter, so it's not going to appear as anything other than a small building to folks in the Taco Bell parking lot. Most of the time, when you're looking to locate a dumpster, it's about maneuverability for the truck. So the truck can come in, pull directly in, pull out the dumpster, lift it, empty it, and then make that turn around the drive-through. It's just it's really a function of maneuverability. And is there anything else? Yeah. Come on up, Phil.
We'll need to get you to the podium. We'll need to get you sworn in.
Sorry.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Phil Gambrell, excuse me. Phil Gambrell, Prism Engineering, 2309 Waterston Trail, Louisville, Kentucky, 40299. The main reason for placing it there is because of the extra wide lane going out next to the drive-through lane. That is a less impedance to the garbage truck to be able to back out of the dumpster and make that turn to go out. If it was in the end, the angled parking drive lane is only 16 feet wide, and it just got a little too tight. So putting it there gave us a much easier exit movement for the trash.
So you don't see the drive-through lanes or drive-through traffic being an impediment to if the garbage truck comes at 6 a.m. in the morning?
The only impedance would be when the truck is backing out to leave, because the positioning of the truck actually dumping is not blocking the drive-through lane.
Okay, thank you. One last question, if the commissioners don't mind.
Please.
I didn't see any doors on the back side of the building. Is that no deliveries to the back? It would be all to the front?
They'd be all to the front. I mean, the doors would conflict with the drive-through lane, so.
Because it just kind of contradicts what he said about delivery trucks for a retail spot being in that side of where it's not as wide.
What's that? I'm not sure that's what he was.
So if we have
getting at.
deliveries, they're all going to delivery in the front towards the Walmart side. Is that what you're saying?
That we don't have doors to use otherwise, so they'd have to figure out a place on the site to stop. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how traffic flows through that parking lot to get to the drive-through.
I understand.
Anything else, Mr. Douglas? All right, Commissioners,
Mr.
other
Chairman.
questions? Mr. Marsh?
The visual you have up there, the green, is that green space? Is that grass and or landscaping?
Yeah.
That is the
Yes, that's
intention?
correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions? Ms. Kraus?
So if there was a fire, how do the people in these get out if there's only the front door?
If there's a fire, the building is sized and obviously has to meet fire code. So a building of this depth can have an entrance where the entrances are shown and doesn't need necessarily an additional exit. Obviously, if something else comes up during the building review, then we would have to incorporate an additional exit.
Okay. Further questions, Commissioners? Mr. Falvey?
I guess it's for Mr. Sullivan and council. Is the proposed binding element that he's shown, if this is approved, is that good with you all?
Yes, we did speak about it yesterday.
Okay,
Again,
so
to get
it
the language
is-
correct. I would recommend or ask to add, though, since Mr. Ashburner suggested that they be included in the bond or be bonded with the project. Typically, for a commercial site, we would only request surety for the erosion control. It's not going to a record plat, so we don't have a performance bond on it. So if we could add to that binding element that these improvements shall be included in the project surety.
Okay.
Other than
Counsel,
that, I'm fine.
anything to add?
Is that okay?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Further questions? Commissioners? All right. Mr. Ashburner? I want to slim down the procedure here. Any rebuttal to the discussion that's just been had?
No rebuttal.
No rebuttal? Okay. Final statement then from you?
The only final statement really is, this is a decrease, ultimately a decrease in impervious surface. This is a typical use that you would find on an outlot near a retail center. It's really close to the middle of the center at that. And we are agreeing through the binding element to address any traffic issues that come up from the traffic impact study. We're happy to work with Mr. Silliman and the city of Crestwood should any improvements be needed. But other than that, I would just ask that you look at your staff's recommendation, consider the evidence today, and would ask that you approve the development plan. Thank you.
Mr. Ashburner. All right, guys. Mr. Fisher. You frame up what's next for us here.
All right, so you'll have two different motions before you. So those start on page 2, going into page 3 in your staff report. So the first one is for the site plan review. You've got sample motions to either approve or deny the plan, along with attached binding elements, and I'm going to get here to the one that was provided. So those proposed binding elements include the approval applies only to the plans presented at the August 27, 2024 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. A landscape and lighting plan must be submitted for approval at the time of construction plan approval. There shall be no changes to the plan without review by the Oldham County Planning Commission and Engineers Office, except for landscaping and lighting plans, which shall be reviewed by staff. The plan must comply with all established federal, state, and county ordinances and requirements and comply with all necessary easement restrictions. And then we are going to add the proposed binding element that the applicant shall conduct a traffic impact study and file the same with the Oldham County engineer before construction plan submittal. Should the TIS recommend striping or signage improvements, the applicant shall include such improvements in its construction plan submittal for review by the Oldham County engineer and the City of Crestwood engineer, and in those improvements shall be included in the project surety.
All right, and there was also testimony as to a water quality unit. Is that part of the binding elements or?
We did
conditions?
not put that in there. We can put a water quality unit in there. I don't.
Mr. Silliman says no. I stand down. Okay.
I'll just explain real briefly because it's going to be required as part of the construction plan approval and the ordinance. So.
Thank you. All right. Commissioners, questions? All right. The floor will be open. We'll begin with waiver on the maximum impervious surface area.
Are we doing the site plan approval first and then the waiver?
Council, which sequence are we following?
Well, so for the purposes, the site plan review, I don't know that it matters. The one thing is property is properly zoned, and I don't know if there was a requirement when the property was developed that any changes to the development would require planning commission review. If that was not the case, I mean, this is almost, that portion of this is pretty ministerial, and as long as it's in compliance with the ordinance, that would be something that could have probably been approved at staff level. So maybe the waiver is what's got us here. So maybe the waiver ought to be the first thing, and then we go to the site plan review.
Okay.
All right. So the waiver, the only condition of approval on that would be it shall only apply to the plans presented at the August 27th, 2024 Oldham County Public.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. All right, commissioners, questions? All right, floor is open for motions on the waiver. Mr. Falvey?
We'll try it. Per docket PZ 24-015, I move to approve the waivers through testimony and findings today. The design innovations of this case seem to meet all criteria and will achieve the basic objectives of the regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Falvey. Mr. Baxter?
Mr. Falvey, would you be willing to make a finding that the testimony was that actually the impervious surface will be reduced based upon the site plan?
Sure. I'd incorporate that.
Thank you, Mr. Falvey. Mr. Baxter, we're good?
Then we have an adequate motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Finney, thank you. All right, discussion, guys. We'll move into roll call vote.
Mr. Finney,
Yes.
Mr. Hampton,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Kraus,
Yes.
Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Winters,
Yes.
Ms. Nasser,
Yes.
Mr. Marsh,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Walzer,
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. And the motion to approve the waiver for the impervious surface area has been approved on a vote of 12 to 0. All right, move into site plan approval. Mr. Fisher?
I think he already read this one, Mr.
Yeah, okay, so just as a reminder. All right, so
You're welcome.
floor is open, commissioners. Any questions? Mr. Falvey?
I'll make the motion on docket PZ 24-015 for approval of the site plan through testimony and findings today. The plans are consistent with the requirements of the Oldham County zoning ordinance and specifically section 230-110 site plan requirements. And I would incorporate the binding elements as read, including the new one in regards to the traffic study.
You have a good motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter and Mr. Falvey. Do I have a second? Mr. Marsh, thank you. All right, discussion. We'll move into roll call vote. Ms. Edgar?
Ms. Walzer,
Yes.
Ms. Nasser,
Yes.
Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Kraus,
Yes.
Ms. Davis, Mr. Douglas,
Yes.
Mr. Finney,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Hampton,
Yes.
Mr. Winters,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mr. Marsh.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. And site plan for PZ-24-015 has been approved on a vote of 12 to 0. All right. Everybody good? Yeah? Okay, we're going to keep rolling then. You need a break? Take a break? Let's take a quick break. Let's take no more than 10, okay? All right, everybody, thank you for indulging us that break. We'll go ahead and come back to order. Ms. Edgar, will you read the next docket, please? We are at 24-014, yes.
Docket PZ-24-014, application has been filed by the City of LaGrange for the approval of a waiver for required maximum parking regulations in Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, Section 280-080, on approximately 156.8 acres at the existing Eagle Creek Golf Course. The property is located at 2820 South Highway 53, LaGrange. The property is zoned PUD, Planned Unit Development District.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. Mr. Fisher?
All right, thank you, Ryan Fisher, Director, Oldham County Planning. So this is a waiver of off-street parking regulations at the Eagle Creek Golf Course. Hang on, you all have got all that already. Zoning, that's a PUD. It's currently used as a golf course and recreational on 156.8 acres. A little bit of site history, you all, some of you all may remember this. Back in October of last year, you all heard a community facility review for the demolition of the existing Eagle Creek Golf Course Clubhouse and the construction of a new and improved one. You all approved that community facility review on a vote of 11-0 on this proposed clubhouse that is currently under construction. As far as this case history, because once they got into their plans, they realized they were going to be going over the maximum allowed parking. They came in and approached us, and we determined that we needed to come before you for a waiver. So we did post that to the county website at the end of July, sent out our adjoining property owner notices August 12th, and that public notice appeared in the Oldham Era on the 8th. Here's the property in question, showing that it is located within a PUD. So the applicant's currently constructing that new 11,065 square foot clubhouse for the Eagle Creek Golf Course in LaGrange. That community facility review, once again, was approved by you all back last October. The clubhouse that's currently under construction has several different uses involved, which include a pro shop, a proposed restaurant, obviously the golf course, and then as well as a residence. Here in the orange circle, yellow circle, maybe depending on where you're looking, is that currently under construction clubhouse, and you can see the parking that surrounds the golf course there in the clubhouse. So a parking waiver is being asked for 64 additional parking spaces. The current regulations require a minimum of 68 total spaces and a maximum of 125 total spaces. Now, we'll go over the sections in our parking regulations that show this, but the applicant has proposed 189 parking spaces. So therefore, the applicant's before you requesting a waiver of 64 additional spaces. They do state in their justification statement that the current parking regulations don't really allow for anything such as special events, golf scrambles, things of that sort. The nature of additional volunteers that may be needed at those events, as well as possible future expansion on the site, which they may elaborate on in their presentation. So once again, there's a picture of the clubhouse and the parking. If we look at our parking regulations based on the different types of proposed uses they have, you can see there the three sections that we're going to be looking at. So retail for the golf pro shop, the minimum and the maximum. The commercial recreational for or non-retail commercial and recreational for the sit-down dining for the restaurant, and then in addition for the golf course. So they have outlined this on their plans, but showing the pro shop as at a total of 462 total square feet, what the minimum and the maximum are, and then they've provided 3 spaces for that use. The restaurant, 48 spaces, the 18-hole golf course, maximum on that is 4 spaces per the number of holes. So it's 18-hole golf course. Does not look a lot like my golf score when I go, but 72 spaces is the maximum. 136 spaces, they must have taken my golf score because that's the number of spaces they have provided. And then the residence just requires either 1 to 2 spaces, and they've provided 2. So you can just kind of see the different uses and the numbers, the minimum and the maximums that they have looked at and provided. So they're asking for a waiver of that required maximum parking regulations. Once again, minimum is 68 parking spaces based on those number of uses. The maximum parking being 125. They are asking to be allowed to have 189 parking spaces, which the waiver requests then becoming 64 parking spaces. The potential conditions of approval on that is that the waiver shall only apply to the plans reviewed at this August 27, 2024, Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. And with that, that concludes my portion of the presentation.
Mr. Silliman?
I'll be very brief, just to state that from a stormwater perspective, the plan you have in front of you does include design that incorporates detention in accordance with our ordinance. We've, in order to work timing with the applicant, the city, we've already reviewed the plans and approved them, so they meet our ordinance requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Silliman. All right. Closes the staff's presentation for this item. So any questions from the commission of staff? Any questions from commissioners? Seeing none, we'll move into presentation from applicant. I'm going to need you to come to the microphone, sir.
Sorry, I broke my arm.
Yeah,
I fell off a ladder.
yeah. Come on.
Anyway, I'm just here to meet the requirement of a lawyer be present.
Come a little closer to that mic so I can pick you up on the
introduce
record.
Bill Nizer. He's our engineer, our draftsman, who's going to show why we need these extra spaces. The way they calculate it based on the number of holes is just one way of calculating the spaces, but we need more holes, more spaces for this restaurant that's
thank
going to be there if that's going to be successful.
Hey, so protocol, name and address for the record, please.
Beach Craig Mile, 105 South First Street, LaGrange, Kentucky.
And your capacity here today is?
I'm the attorney for the city of LaGrange.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next.
Very professional.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Bill Knisner, to clarify, I am not an engineer. I say this every time I come up here. I'm with Meridian Survey and Design Services here in LaGrange, 2249 Commerce Parkway. Yeah, this is kind of like the Laurel Hardy show, if any of you know what that is. But so, yeah, when the city originally planned to come ahead and redo the golf course, after the fact they decided they wanted to do some additional parking due to the fact of overcrowding during events, scrambles, whatnot. So I was contracted by them to do an look at what they can and can't do. The plan you have in front of you is based off of us going back and forth for about 6 months to make a decision on how many parking spaces they need or what they would like to have. And a caveat in that, and it was not reflected in the plan, is at some point in the future they are planning on doing some expansion further towards Highway 53 with possibly a public pool, but that could be 20 years down the road, so that wasn't even incorporated in his plan. So at the time, we decided to increase to maximize the number of spaces we had to accommodate for the scrambles that they do have. And the number that we came up with was just a number that they chose. They actually chose more. And I said, well, let's cut it back a little bit so it's not quite as atrocious on the number. So right now we are having an additional 64, is that what we said? 64 spaces. And a lot of that is dependent on, per the previous planning commission Yeah, Mr. Urban and I had a discussion about the lack of number of spaces that actually golf courses probably really need. 4 spaces per hole, but normally you have 2 foursomes per hole running, so technically it'd be closer to 8. So we kind of did an accommodation of, hey, what if we just use roughly 6? So that's kind of where these numbers all came from.
All right. Anything else to add?
No.
Okay. So we'll circle back to you in a minute. Anyone else here wish to speak in favor of this application? And does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this application? All right, commissioners, questions for the applicant? Mr. Cragmile, any final statements from your end? All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Fisher? What's the speed docket?
So you just have one motion before you for the parking waiver. Those motions either approve or deny are located on page 3 in your staff packet, with the only proposed condition of approval being that the waiver shall only apply to today's public hearing, August 27, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Commissioners, questions, motions? Mr. Marsh?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move that in regard to docket PZ 24014, I move that we approve the waiver because the design innovations of this case, which are additional parking, will achieve the intention of the comprehensive plan without substantially compromising regulations, and it supports the recreation economic development within the county and the community.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Mr.
And I'd
Baxter?
also like to add on the mining element.
Good for you. Thank you. Baxter?
And Mr. Marsh, that's for the waiver request of 64 additional spaces?
Correct, 64 additional spaces.
Very good, Mr. Chairman.
All right, a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Ms. Davis, thank you. Discussion? All right, we'll move into roll call vote. Ms. Edgar?
Mr. Hampton.
Yes.
Ms. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Marsh.
Yes.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Ms. Walzer.
Yes.
Sorry.
All good.
Ms. Kraus.
Yes.
Ms. Nasser.
Yes.
Mr. Winters.
Yes.
Mr. Falvey.
Yes.
Mr. Finney.
Yes.
Mr. Fox.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar.
I was not asked.
Oh,
Sorry, Ms.
give
Jones.
Ms. Jones.
Yes.
There is a spot there.
Must participate. Thank you. All right, and PZ-24-014, motion to approve has been approved on a vote of 12-0. Thank you for spending time with us today, gentlemen. All right, you ready to roll?
My turn again, huh?
Your turn.
No.
All right.
All right, you ready?
Move on to the next docket, please.
All right, docket PZ 24-015. Application has been filed by Westcott Construction.
Is this 5 or 6?
016.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right, let's start over. Docket PZ-24-016. Application has been filed by Judith and B. Wayne Cobb for approval of a waiver of the minor plat rule on approximately 74.31 acres. The property is located at 4119 East Highway 22, Smithfield. The zoning is AG-1 agricultural and residential and CO-1 conservation/residential.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. Mr. Fisher.
All right, Ryan Fisher, Director, Oldham County Planning. So this is for a waiver from our minor subdivision plat rule. Property located at 4119 East Highway 22 in Smithfield. is zoned AG1 and CO1 and sits on a total of 74.31 acres. Here is the approximate location of the piece of property and the existing zoning showing the different portions of AG1 and CO1 on the property. Case history, as with our other ones, we did post this to our website and notified all adjoining property owners as well in middle of August, and then our public notice appeared in the Era on the 8th of August. So a little bit of site history, as with any of these waivers on our minor subdivision rule, we'll kind of go through some site history of the different plats that have been done over the years. And so this first one is January 7th, 2016. So when we look at our minor plat rule, this is actually outside of that 5 years, but I just wanted to let you know. So the staff approved a minor plat back in 2016. And that plat was 15-060, and that created a new 7.653 acre tract to be known as Tract 1A. So that provided the rest of the residual Tract 1 at that point a total of 81.91 acres. So that was done in 2016. Now we get to the ones that will still fall within that 5-year time frame, which brings us before you today for that waiver. So this first one was a tract that was done in August 19th, 2022. Staff approved a minor plat 22-045 to create a 5.112 acre tract to be known as Tract 1. That left the original residual tract being 76.80 acres of property. And then on July 22nd of this year, staff approved a minor plat as well, 24-035, which created a 1.495 acre tract that was to be known as, actually a 2.495 acre tract, to be known as Tract 1. That left that residual tract being 74.31 acres that we have before us today. So the applicant is proposing now to create a new 5.032 acre tract, which will then leave the original residual tract, the parent tract having 69.28 acres of land as the residual. So here is that proposed 5.032 acre tract that they're proposing a minor plat for today, which would require a waiver of that minor plat rule. So according to section 2.22, our definition of terms in our subdivision regulations, a minor subdivision is defined as a subdivision of land into not more than 3 lots within a 5-year time period and not involving a new public street or private road. So essentially, to make it easier to understand, you can create 2 new tracts within a 5-year time period, because then the parent tract is the third. So you can see with the divisions that they've had so far from 2022 on, they're asking for a waiver from this most recent plat. So a major subdivision, so we looked at minor. A major subdivision is defined as a subdivision of land into 4 or more lots, or any division of land beyond 3 lots within a 5-year time period from a parent tract or tract divided therefrom. And there's the definition as well. That was included in your staff packet. So the applicant divided the original parent tract into newly created tracts both in 2016, 2022, and 2024, which we looked at within the site history. Those created tracts from both 2022 and the one from earlier in 2024 are within that 5-year time frame. Thus, the applicants are requesting a waiver of section 2.2 of the Oldham County subdivision regulations to allow the creation of a proposed 5.032 acre tract. The applicant has stated that their intent is to supplement their income while maintaining the rural integrity of the area by placing restrictions on the sell-offs on the acreage that is allowed to be sold off on any of those lots, and they can elaborate a little more about that. The remaining residual land, so the residual land of the 69 point something acres, I can't remember exactly what that total was, from this current split is going to be placed in a trust, and that no future divisions of the land are expected. If the waiver request is approved, the applicant would be required to submit that minor plat application. That would be sent out to agencies for any sort of comments that may be addressed based off of that split prior to any sort of final approval from the staff. So the applicant's requesting a waiver of that minor plat rule on that current 74.31 acres of land at 4119 East Highway 22 in Smithfield. And those potential conditions of approval would be that waiver shall only apply to the plan reviewed at the August 27th, 2024 Planning Commission public hearing, and that minor plat application and survey must be submitted to staff for review and approval. And with that being said, that is all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. All right, staff or commission, questions of staff. Mr. Hampton.
For my own edification, they're not required to have counsel here for this?
No. Well, I should let Barry answer that, but they're the property owner.
Yeah, no, if this was a LLC or something like that, they would need to have counsel here, but they're representing themselves as individuals, so there's no reason for that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of staff? Very well. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. We will move into presentation from applicant. As you guys approach, we'd like to get your name and address, get you sworn in.
Good morning. My name is Bill Cobb, 4119 East Highway 22, Smithfield, 40068-9212.
All right. Hang on one sec.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Floor's yours.
I'll be courteous by being brief, since it's getting late in the morning. We bought this property 1973. That was 51 years ago. Didn't spend a lot of time 51 years ago thinking about retirement. Didn't planning to retire ever. Did not live this long. But we did talk about it, my wife and I, Judith, kind of half-heartedly. Again, not planning on it. But we've reached the point where we are retired and approaching, looking closely at final retirement at some point, since I'm almost 90, and hard to believe. But we would like to get this approved so we can do our final sale on this to help fund the rest of our retirement in addition to our Social Security and retirement benefits that we get. So as you've seen, we've already made some sales. We've done some, and we have put the balance or in the process of putting it in a trust for our children to handle when we aren't handling things anymore. So we've been pretty good, we think we've been good stewards of our land because we are not allowing, although we've had several offers of people wanting to develop the whole property. We didn't want that to happen. That area of Highway 22 is not pristine necessarily, but it's certainly a beautiful piece of the highway. So we would really appreciate to be having approval so we can move forward and not have to worry about our children taking care of us. So thank you. We respectfully request your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? And does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right. Commissioners, questions for applicant? No questions? Looks like you can remain seated. Okay. Mr. Fisher.
So we just have before you today one motion. That is for that waiver of the minor subdivision rule. So those motions and findings are at the bottom of page 2, either a motion to approve or a motion to deny. The conditions of approval on the following page, and that's that the waiver shall only apply to the plan reviewed at the August 27th, 2024 Planning Commission public hearing, and that minor plat application and survey must be submitted to staff for review and approval.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. All right, commissioners, questions, discussion? Seeing none, floor is open for a motion. Ms. Davis. Please.
I make a motion that we approve PZ 24016. The motion to approve the minor subdivision because it complies with the objectives of Oldham County of the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinances, and subdivision regulations. The approval is contingent upon the strict adherence to the binding elements listed that he's read today.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Baxter.
You have an adequate motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Falvey. All right, guys, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote.
Mr.
Let
Chairman.
Jones go first.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I had one question.
Okay.
I know it's a minor subdivision plat, but this is a waiver for the minor subdivision plat. So should we say waiver in that motion? I mean, I'm not.
Certainly does no harm. Let's incorporate that into the motion. Ms. Davis, does that suit you? And Mr. Falvey, does that suit you? Okay. Okay, we can go ahead and go with a roll call vote.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Mr. Finney?
Yes.
Mr. Falvey?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Winters?
Yes.
Ms. Nasser?
Yes.
Ms. Walzer?
Yes.
Mr. Marsh?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Edgar. And the approval of the waiver for PZ-24-016 has been approved on a vote of 11 to 1. Thank you. All right, Mr. Fisher.
All right, I think we got one more thing, and hopefully we can make this fairly fast, and we can still be out of here by lunch. So we are just asking as staff, the city of Crestwood approved a master plan back earlier this year. And I know we went through SRC on this, just to ask about getting that as an appendix to our current Oldham County comprehensive plan. So we're bringing that before you today to ask that we accept that as part of the Oldham County Planning Commission, to accept their Crestwood Master Plan as an appendix to our comprehensive plan. So Ms. Jody Smiley is here. She was instrumental in creating this. So if you have any questions, she'll be able to answer them. She does have a short presentation. I know I sent you all the master plan that was on our website in case you viewed it. But if you want her to give her brief presentation, you can. If not, I would just ask to get that accepted into as an appendix to our Oldham County Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Ms. Smiley, what can you share with us? You've sat here for a long time today. You might as well get a chance to speak up.
Hi, you want to swear me in first?
Sure do.
Okay. First, name?
Name and address, please. Yes.
Name and address, Jody Smiley, address 4426 Greenbrier Road in Louisville, Kentucky, 40207.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to make this super brief. Figuring out how we're doing this. Nope. Nope. Nope.
There's some arrows over on the right margin.
There? That one? No, we just got to wait. Oh, this is the whole thing. Yeah, we don't need that. There's 100 pages of this. We don't need this.
Oh, I know what I
So-
did. Sorry.
No problem.
That's the whole master plan. I need the one at the top. Sorry. That was just a test.
There we go. All right. Now down hours work. Okay. So just being real brief, we did begin with history. I'm not giving you a history lesson, but my planning team does like to begin at the beginning. So we're going to jump right in, and I just want to give you a quick overview of how to read the document in case you have not had the chance to. If you have had the chance to, you can snooze. This will only be a couple minutes. There are goals and objectives right at the beginning, which kind of offer a framework for the whole plan, what we're trying to do. Rather than go through all the goals, they just, a summary. They improve goals to improve the roads and pathways in a variety of travel modes. We try to hit all travel modes we could think of, walking, biking, SUV, big delivery truck. We also, another goal was to improve the cohesiveness and beautification of the city. It is a very mixed up place at the moment. We're trying to bring it together into a one nice, happy place to be. And obviously the improved health, safety, and welfare of the residents. Arrow, there we go. Looking at, just from a bird's eye view, we took the planning and zoning map and from that drew out land uses, and we made land use clusters, or we drew on the map land use clusters to kind of identify what's used where. The bright yellow is residential. The blue is institutional. Sorry, brain stopped. The blue is institutional, which would cover the churches and the schools, and the red is commercial. And so just those basic land uses, we didn't get into all the little details, just looking at an overall view and how those uses interact with our roadways, our major roadways all being state highways. And of course, the interstate up on the top. But the roadways in and out of the town are all state highways, and looking at how those uses interact with those highways and identifying existing connectors between them and where connectors are currently planned and where connectors could possibly be in the future in order to help the city move forward. As a help to the city, we divided this into roads versus pathways, vehicular versus pedestrian, because the roads in the town are all state highways. So we've got 329 bypass, 22, 146, 1408. I think that's the right number. And so the city doesn't really have jurisdiction over those. But we wanted to identify what's already going on so that they could understand it. And it helped them a lot if we separated it into roads and pathways. They have a lot more ability as a city to make improvements to pedestrian activities and help the cohesiveness of their city by letting people walk and ride bicycles. So that's why we separated into two. It does make it a little more confusing. So just want to point that out right from the beginning, that you're looking at roadways specifically, then you're looking at pedestrian. So after you've looked at all that, jumping to the end, just to summarize and the whole thing, the final summary begins with its focus on what the city can do. So if the city's able to lead it, we're looking at sidewalk connections, lighting evaluations, street signs, tree canopy, those kind of things that are really more city-led. Then the plan ends with a summary of recommendations in chart form that focuses on specific state roads and highways. So this particular page, this all begins at the end of the summary. This particular page shows us 329 bypass, just as an example. There's going to be a little map on the left or on the outside that shows which road we're talking about. And then the chart focuses on what the goals from the beginning directed us to look at. The abbreviated project description is in there that can relate back to what was already said in the plan. This just summarizes everything into a nice, neat little package of, I believe that's 6 pages covering each one of the roads. And here's a blow up of that page just to show you a little bit more easily what you would look at in that document. The document is online on the Crestwood website, and I believe you all have a copy of it as well.
All right.
Any questions?
Questions? Anyone? Mr. Finney?
Yes, I was looking through this in the transportation side. I didn't see any roundabouts, and I don't know if they're considered or not. No, and I personally, I hope they are not. But if they are, may they be built with tractor trailers in mind? Because as we go over in Indiana, they've used them quite a bit in southern Indiana, and they are not built with tractor trailers in mind. And when tractor trailers go around, they take up at least 2 lanes. So, you know, that's just things like that need to be built in the future, need to be built with some common sense. And so they're large enough to really work with traffic instead of work against traffic?
Yes, we did not get into any specific designs such as that, as in where a roundabout might be or not be, but this focused on the ability of traffic to go through, but it didn't do the study. It references the study that is going on right now for 329 bypass as an example. So KYTC, KIPTA, who's funding that? Is it KIPTA or KYTC? Okay, so KIPTA is funding the study of 329 bypass currently. So getting into very specific detail of intersections where we would put in a roundabout would go back to any of those studies, because those are going to be on those state roads, which we can't direct them what to and not to do, but we can influence them and tell them what things that we would like to have happen at these intersections. We would like them to be user-friendly, for instance. We would like pathways and easy flow, so that the traffic study itself is going to happen with each one of those specific highways.
Thank you very much.
All right. Further questions from the commission? All right. Seeing none. Mr. Fisher?
And just to add on to Mr. Finney's question, you know, that's a lot of the reasons why we wanted this accepted to be an appendix within our comp plan, so that as development grows, we see things happening in Crestwood, that not only are they in accordance with our comp plan, but then we also have this document, which is a very great document. A lot of work put into it, beautiful design, that's incorporated in there as well, so that we can guide development in accordance with our comp plan, as well as kind of what Crestwood has come up with. So,
Mr. Fisher, this is just a reference material, correct?
Correct. Yeah, this is just an appendix that will go within our comp plan.
All right. All right, commissioners, anything additional? Mr. Douglas?
Fisher or Ms. Molly. So the City of Crestwood Council and the mayor have approved this?
They did. They approved it by ordinance too.
Oh,
yes,
they have? Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Further questions? All right. So we're looking for a motion for acceptance of the City of Crestwood Master Plan as appendix to the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan, correct? Correct. All right, Mr. Baxter, anything?
No, sir. I mean,
Right.
there's not any other stipulations that somebody could just say so moved.
I'm
because
going
you
to say
well
so
stated it.
moved. That's
thank
what I was
you.
going to say.
All right, so Mr. Douglas, you're on the spot. I said so moved. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Mr. Baxter?
Adequate.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, your motion that you didn't make was very adequate.
I have a second. Mr. Hampton, thank you. All right. Can we go with voice vote on this?
Yes.
All right. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. And motion carries. All right. Anything else?
Just we will have a meeting next month, September 24th. Probably won't have an SRC because I know we've hit it for about 4 months. So we'll probably take a break on that one, but we've got plenty of stuff heading your way, and just one case really, but a lot of other things. So an ordinance coming your way next month. So we'll be here, same time, same place.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Okay. Unless anyone has anything else, we will be, Mr. Fax. Yes. That's on the 17th, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you very much. I
guys-
meant to bring that up. If anybody hasn't registered for that, do so. I know we've got maybe 4 or 5 people going, a couple Board of Adjustments members. So the more people that can, get your 8 hours in.
Terrific.
And please note on that application, the email address was incorrect. So
Yeah, if you have problems, just send it to me and I'll send it to her. But yeah, she put a ky.gov address on there and it should be her KIPTA email address. So if it has trouble, just send it to me.
Thank you. See if your check cleared, right?
Yeah, yeah, you should be good. I don't think they turn people away at these, so just show up. But yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you mailed it, I can confirm with her and be sure that you're on there. So.
All right. Anyone else? Good to the cause, and then we will stand adjourned. Thank you.